Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to get started in just a minute. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Caring for the Caregiver webinar presented by the Executive Office of Aging and Independence and the Mass Tech Collaborative. And today's topic is Savvy Seniors, Protecting Yourself and Loved Ones from Scams and Identity Theft. My name is Bella Santos. I'm the Digital and Economic Equity Fellow with the American Connection Corps at the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to this very important conversation. So, older adults and caregivers, as we know, are increasingly targeted by sophisticated scams like mail, phone, internet, and even through emerging tactics like cryptocurrency fraud. In this session, experts from the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office, including representatives from the Community Engagement Division, Elder Justice Unit, and the Insurance and Financial Services Division, will break down the most common forms of identity theft and financial scams, red flags to watch for, and practical steps to prevent, detect, and respond. This presentation will also cover key Massachusetts resources, including how to report suspected fraud or financial exploitation to the Attorney General's office, when to contact local police or protective services, and what immediate steps caretakers and caregivers and their loved ones can take to secure accounts, freeze credit, and seek assistance. I'm very pleased to welcome our speakers from the Massachusetts Attorney General's office. First, we have Valerie Frias, who is the Deputy Director of the Attorney General's Office of Elder Justice Unit, which works to protect and promote safety and well-being of older adults through enforcement actions, legislative advocacy, and community engagement and education. She brings extensive legal experience, including serving as a counsel for state and federal legislative committees, at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, and in private practice. Next, we have Lilia Dubois, an Assistant Attorney General in the Insurance and Financial Services Division. In this role, she conducts investigations of insurance and securities fraud, as well as unfair and deceptive practices in the crypto and blockchain technology industry. During her time at the Attorney General's office, she spearheaded the office's initiative to pursue recovery for crypto scam victims through civil litigation. Oumou Cherif serves as the Director of Outreach and Language Access Coordinator at the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office, leading statewide community education and know your rights trainings like workplace rights, immigration law, identity theft, and landlord-tenant rights. She holds an MPA with a nonprofit management concentration. And so just a couple housekeeping notes before we can officially begin. Just a quick note for those who are attending live, please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A chat box or just in the chat. And you can also submit your questions anonymously if you'd like. We just ask that you please do not include any personal or identifying information in your questions. There will be a dedicated time at the end of our session today for your questions. And then there is also a live transcription that is enabled for this webinar. You can access the live captions by clicking on the CC or live transcript button on your Zoom toolbar. Thank you again for being here today. And now I'd like to turn it over to our speakers from the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office, Valerie, Lilia, and Oumou. And so thank you for joining us. And we're going to be starting off with Valerie. So please take it away.
Thank you very much for that introduction. As Bella said, I'm Val Frias. I'm the Deputy Director of the Elder Justice Unit here in the office. I am joined in this unit by our Director, Mary Freely, and by two other Assistant Attorneys General. We convene internal and external elder justice groups to listen to priorities and hear ongoing issues. We also work collaboratively with other divisions in the office to use our enforcement tools and prosecute in the areas of long-term care, exploitation, and other consumer protection matters that impact older adults. We work with the Community Engagement Division on our education. And then we also advocate for state and national policy that aligns with the mission of the unit and protects vulnerable older adults. So please, I'll be here for the question and answer portion. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters and Oumou Cherif.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you, Bella, for that great overview. Thank you to you all for being on the call today. As my colleague mentioned earlier, we will be discussing all things related to scams and ID theft and cryptocurrency towards the end of the presentation. But like any presentation, we like to give you an overview of what our office does. So with that being said, the Attorney General's office is an advocate and resource for all residents in the Commonwealth, regardless of your legal status. We like to emphasize that. We do a ton of work around protecting consumers, combating fraud and corruption, investigating, and as well as prosecuting crimes and protecting the environment, workers, and civil rights. Well, here are the four major ways that we go about executing the work that we do in the office. We do a ton of investigation, and my colleague Lilia will be talking a little bit about that during her crypto piece of the presentation. We enforce the law. Let's say, for example, you are currently working and you are getting paid below the minimum wage, which would be anything below $15 in Massachusetts. That's when you would actually contact our Fair Labor Division to ensure that, you are getting paid the right minimum wage. Those are some of the ways that we enforce the law in Massachusetts. And the thirdly is policy. So while we're not state legislators, we don't, write policies. However, we do have a lot of say in the policies that are set to protect each and every one of us in the Commonwealth. With that being said, we want to hear from you. If there are issues affecting your respective communities, we want you to connect with our policy and government division to ensure that we are hearing these issues that are affecting you and your communities. And lastly is prevention. Prevention is really what a lot of us does in the office. My division, specifically the Community Engagement Division, we give a lot of outreach and engagement. We put together a lot of outreach and engagement events to ensure that folks are aware of the resources that are available in the office. We do a lot of education, such as the one that we're leading today, to ensure that you all on this call are aware of what your rights are and to also find ways to protect yourself before scammers get you. Before we get down again to the bulk of the presentation, it's good to know where we're located. So I sit actually in the Boston office, 1 Ashburn. We do have another office right up the street as well. We do have offices in New Bedford, Springfield, as well as Worcester. So just a quick disclaimer, I am not an attorney, and even though my colleagues here on the call are attorneys, unfortunately, we cannot provide any personal legal advice. However, we're more than happy to connect you with resources if there are personal situations that you are currently dealing with that requires any sort of legal consultation. But this presentation is solely for informational purposes only. For now, we're going to talk all about what is financial exploitation, especially, when it involves, seniors, which, these are communities that are, I think they're the communities that should be protected the most. Seniors are amazing, and it breaks my heart every single time when I hear these different type of scams that are affecting them. With that being said, it's important to know that this type of exploitation is the improper or illegal use of an elderly financial resources that could be from, deceit or coercion or sort of like undue influence of the elderly. This could start with someone just cashing your checks, sort of like also even forging your signature, as well as someone misusing or stealing your money or personal information. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how you can sort of prevent these issues from happening. It's important to know that isolation is one of the ways that scammers can easily scam you. So it's important to avoid isolation by staying active and socializing with families and friends. It's also important to monitor your financial transactions closely. Also, be aware of anyone who could potentially pressure you into making any sort of immediate decision, as well as keeping all important, especially legal and financial documents in a safe space. And also, I often like to say this a lot. If it's good, if it sounds too good to be true, chances are it is likely a scam, and folks must be aware of that. Again, just going back to the golden rule, we often like to say, as I mentioned earlier, if it sounds too good to be true, it's definitely a scam. So, few tips I have for you here is to always make sure to read the small print on any transaction, especially online ones, and also guarding your personal information always, and also doing ton of research before agreeing to anything. So a lot of different type of scams that we've seen in the past has been a lot around telemarketing and sort of like unwanted phone calls. And a few of the examples that I have is the grandparent scam or emergency scams, which is typically where scammers use, your emotions to try to scam you. So they may call you, for instance, and tell you that your grandchild is stuck somewhere in Africa or Asia or any of the countries across the world. They may ask that you actually wire them money because they are in some sort of trouble. So I often tell folks to really pause for a second when you hear these type of situations. When you receive this type of phone call, try to figure out where your grandchild is, try to call them directly. Don't try to work off of your emotions, because the goal here for them is to really affect your emotions so that you are in this vulnerable state where you just want to know whether your grandchild is okay or not. So definitely keep in mind to check in with them before, wiring any money to these scammers. And lottery scam is also something that we see a lot, as well as Medicaid, government scams, IRS, bank. The holidays are coming up soon. You may receive some sort of calls that says the IRS is coming for you. The IRS would never call you on the phone. If they need you, they would send you a letter in the mail. Here are some of the things that are sort of advised whenever you are in a situation where you're receiving any sort of unwanted phone calls. Number one, always hang up. If you don't know where the call is coming from, you did not initiate the call, simply hang up the phone. And also, do not send cash, checks, crypto, gift cards, or any sort of process where you're wiring money to these individuals you quite frankly don't know. And also, never give up your personal information unless you initiated a call. So if a bank calls you and tells you to sign something electronically, you have to first pause and ask yourself, did you actually initiate that call? And if you did not initiate the call, please do not give your information. And if they are claiming to be a debt collector, sort of like demanding verification of debt in writing, do not do that as well, unless, of course, you initiated the call. And also, very, very important to always make a note of the caller's time, the time that they're called, the number, date of the call, and definitely report that to the Federal Trade Commission. And we're going to talk a little bit about that step towards the end of the presentation. When it comes to unsolicited mails, we see that a lot as well. If you believe you are a victim of any fraud related to the U.S. mail, please report it to the U.S. Postal Inspectors. And also, contact the Director of Marketing Association to remove your name from the address. That's also very important to just avoid future scams. When it comes to unsolicited, emails, it's always important to protect yourself. So obviously, do not provide your email address on any unknown website. I know, social media is very popular. We all have social medias. I always make sure that I protect myself by not putting my personal information, such as date of birth or even personal email addresses. And also, do not respond to emails where you cannot verify the sender. If you don't know who sent you that email, please do not open it because that can lead into other cases as well. And you can always click unsubscribe at the bottom of the email, especially if you don't know where the email is coming from. And again, any sort of, internet crime can be reported through the FBI. We're going to talk a little bit about few of the tips that I have for you all on this call when it comes to protecting yourself online. It's always important to know who you're dealing with, especially when you're releasing your personal information. If this is online or someone calls you over the phone, it's really just important to know who you're dealing with. And we've talked about this already, as I mentioned earlier. It's always good to also install some sort of antivirus software on your computer. This sort of helps you detect any potential scams that could be coming your way. And also be careful not to release too much information on social media. I've mentioned this already. Thieves can actually use this information to scam you, right? And if you're putting, for example, you're out of town and you're letting your social media know that you're currently out of town, that could potentially lead to someone trying to invade your privacy by coming to your home. So please refrain from that. And also, it's important to create strong passwords. For me personally, I always like to switch my passwords at least every 3 months. I know it can be quite of a headache, but it's definitely best doing that than, risking being scammed. And again, lastly, just shred all of your personal information. There are very small, affordable, shredders online on Amazon that you can easily get to ensure that all of your personal information are shredded. Now we're going to talk a little bit about where to report these different type of scams. As mentioned earlier, anything telephone scams could be reported to the Federal Trade Commission. Anything related to mails can be reported to the United States Postal Inspection Services. And also anything internet related will go directly through the FBI. And just some of the examples of the scams that we've seen over the years, we thought it would be, important to include in this presentation is the home improvement scams. These scammers are, again, getting savvier and they use many tactics to, affect people, especially our senior community. So how does it usually work? So you might find these scammers will go door to door, claiming that they're actually selling repair services. They will often go there and leave some leftover materials and offer services at a lower cost, which would encourage people to potentially agree to their services, right? And a lot of times what we forget is that these folks are actually not registered and they don't have their licenses at all. And they usually use a lot of high pressure tactics, such as, you can only get this deal today. After today, it will go up, the price will go up. So it's really important to just pay attention to these red flags. I consider these red flags. And a lot of times, if you don't pay attention to these, you have them, come to your home upon giving them money. Unfortunately, they either do bad repairs or they don't do your repairs at all. So it's really important to just keep mind on these type of small things. And what should you do in the event that, you are in this type of situation where somebody comes to your home asking to do some sort of home improvement work? Do not let them into your home. Do not let them enter at all into your apartment or house. And always ask for their license and permit, right? They have to make sure that, they have a permit in order to come to different cities and towns. And there's actually a way for you to call your city or town and verify whether these folks are actually licensed and, quite frankly, permitted to work, in your area. And again, do not feel pressure to say yes to make any sort of payment. In any type of situation where you have to do renovation for your home, I don't personally think is something that should be rushed. So it's really important to just take your time, making sure you have people that are licensed and, quite frankly, have the permit to actually do the work. So another type of scam that we see a lot, and I've heard a lot of these cases, is usually charity scams. I think we all have naturally we're good people and we want to give, we want to help people, which there's nothing wrong with helping, right? But while you help, you also want to ensure that you are staying safe. With that being said, there are organizations that sort of pause themselves to be charities, just to scam people, quite frankly. And a lot of time they use very high pressure tactic to demand for quick donations. And I believe that usually if you're just trying to support a nonprofit or any sort of local organization that is supposed to do good for their community, it shouldn't be on high pressure. I think that they should just give you the option of wanting to give a donation or not. But a lot of time these scammers tend to add a lot of pressure and make you feel as if you don't donate right now at the moment, there would be an issue, which is wrong in a lot of cases. So a lot of times, what we're advising folks to do is to actually verify the organization and making sure that this organization is actually registered through the state of Massachusetts by visiting the Attorney General's Public Charities Annual Filings website. And, these are situations where you can actually reach out to us personally, just to check if there is an organization that, again, you're trying to donate to ensure that they are actually registered through our office. And, again, we say this a lot, do not rush into giving away your money and find out exactly where the money is going. Because a lot of time they would say the money is going to just cause and ends up being in their pockets, unfortunately, right? And we also advise not to give your credit card number or bank information over the phone as well when you're trying to donate. So now we're going to talk a little bit about identity theft and how to protect yourself. And I do see that we may have already some questions in the chat. We would have the opportunity towards the end to answer to some of those questions. So number one, it's important to check your credit reports and all of your accounts and carefully safeguarding all of your personal information. So in any type of scams, whether this is identity theft or just the everyday type of scams that we've just highlighted some of them, it's always important to safeguard your personal information, especially your Social Security. That should be in a safe space. And again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to shred any document that may contain your personal information. So now we're going to talk a little bit about, what to do if you become a victim of an identity theft. Unfortunately, it is a very serious situation, but we do want you to know that there are a few steps that you can take, and hopefully this can help you or anyone in your community that might fall under this type of scam. So number one, you always want to make sure to file an ID theft complaint. And usually you also want to do a police report, which would then, give you what we call an identity theft report, right? So number one, as I mentioned earlier, filing an ID theft complaint is really important. A lot of time what we've seen folks do is actually filing one and not the other. So if you file the ID theft report and you do not report it to the police, you would not get what we call an ID theft report. So you want to make sure you file again, the ID theft complaint through the Federal Trade Commission. And together with the police report, you will now have what we call an ID theft report. Next, what you should do is to make sure to contact all of your credit reporting bureaus. I cannot stress enough again how important it is to call each of them individually. With that being said, you want to make sure you to call Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. Don't call one and not the other, thinking that all three will communicate. Yes, they're all working together to ensure that you are protected, but you want to make sure to report it to each of them individually. And what happens after you report, usually they would put a fraud alert on your account, which, initially just is a protection for you. There would also be a security freeze. And as well, you could also ask for a free credit report, which was sort of like give you an idea of all of your credit history, just to make sure that there aren't any red flags upon reviewing those. And step three is to really, to alert all of your creditors. These includes credit card companies, bank accounts, retirement investment accounts. If you're a student who has student loans, just make sure that you also call in those individuals as well. Just to make sure that there's nothing funny going on over there as well. And this will include, again, your cable, internet, phone providers, sort of anyone that you are in communication with, you have credit card line with, or any sort of like small business that you support. Maybe this is like a charity that you often like to donate to, and you donate to them every month, for example, and it's ongoing. You want to call all of these individuals, just letting them know there's currently a freeze on your account, you're going through a situation, and if they could pause whatever it is that they're doing with your credit cards and stuff. So now we're going to talk a little bit about medical identity theft. Again, this is an issue that affects a lot of our senior community. So it was important for us to include this into our slides. Some of the signs that you see if you are a victim of a medical identity theft would be, for example, a bill for services that you did not receive. So it could be that, you receive a bill from a dental office and you pause for a second, you say to yourself, well, the last time I visited a dentist was about 6 months ago. So why am I receiving this? So these type of questions can prompt you into thinking, okay, there may be something going on. You may also receive a call from a debt collector for a debt that you don't own. You will also maybe receive medical collection notices on your credit report, that are not, quite frankly, yours. Or this could be a denial of insurance for service that you should receive. So these are some of the red flags that we've noticed, and it was just important to shed a little light on this. And now to talk a little bit about how to protect yourself from, again, medical identity theft is, again, just always guarding your insurance numbers carefully, and do not share medical or insurance information by phone or email unless, of course, you initiated the contact. So that's the key word here. Unless you initiated the call or any sort of contact over the phone or via email, you want to make sure that you know who you're actually dealing with, and proactively request and review all of your annual listings of all the benefits paid by your insurance company. Really important to keep in mind on that. And also review your medical records and report any sort of errors that you notice on your record. And again, remove personal information from pill containers before disposing them. Cannot stress enough how important that is as well. And now I would like to pass it on to my colleague Lilia from our Insurance and Financial Services division to talk about all things related to cryptocurrency fraud.
Thank you, Oumou. Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to talk to you about some of the most commonly seen by our division, by our office, cryptocurrency-related scams. So the popularity of cryptocurrency has grown significantly in the past several years, and it is viewed by many as a trendy way to make lucrative profits. The hype around crypto created many opportunities for scammers to take advantage of the most vulnerable populations by luring them into cryptocurrency-related scams. So what is cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency is a type of digital asset that can be purchased either through an exchange like crypto.com or Coinbase or Kraken, or through a crypto kiosk. These are those machines that you may have seen at your local grocery store or a pharmacy or a convenience store. There are legitimate ways to invest in cryptocurrency, but it is important to be aware that all cryptocurrency investments are highly volatile and are largely unregulated. Crypto is also frequently used in online scams because crypto transactions are unprotected and irreversible. This, along with the anonymity offered by cryptocurrency, makes it very difficult for law enforcement to prevent this kind of fraud. Some of the most common types of crypto that you may have heard of are Bitcoin, Tether, also known as USDT, and Ethereum. And the logos for those three are at the bottom of the slide. Besides those, there are many, many other coins that you may come across. One type of cryptocurrency you may have heard about in the news are meme coins, also known as junk coins. These are assets that have little or no value beyond speculative trading. They're often named after internet memes, jokes, or celebrities. This type of cryptocurrency is especially volatile, and you should use extreme caution when investing in those. Meme coins are also particularly susceptible to pump and dump and rug pull schemes. This is where the price of the coin is artificially inflated before crashing, leaving ordinary investors at a loss. So the best way to avoid cryptocurrency fraud is being able to spot the warning signs. Next slide, please. So the most common type of cryptocurrency fraud that we see is impersonation scams. In these scams, you will receive an unsolicited call or a text from an individual claiming to be either with a governmental agency such as the IRS, FBI, post office, or police department, or an established business such as a bank, an insurance company, and most recently we have seen a lot of impersonation scams impersonating Coinbase's customer support. The scammers will try to create a false sense of urgency, claiming that you have been accused of a crime, owe money for some reason, or that your funds at a financial institution have been somehow compromised. They will then demand a payment in crypto, and in most cases, they will send you to those crypto ATMs that I have just mentioned. These crypto ATMs will allow you to convert your cash into crypto and then send it to the scammers. During these transactions, the scammer will generally stay with you on the phone and guide you step by step on what to do. You can avoid falling victim to an impersonation scam by remembering that no legitimate agency or business will ever require you to pay them in cryptocurrency. There is no situation in which you will have to send Bitcoin to pay taxes, fees, clear your name, or protect your asset. If you get a call from someone who claims to be with a governmental agency or with a business or with a company that you do business with, try to contact that agency or that business through the published customer service phone number and confirm the identity of the person who called you and whether there is actually an issue. It is best to avoid crypto ATMs altogether because these machines are predominantly used for fraud. Next slide, please. Another common type of cryptocurrency scam is investment scams. In these cases, you will receive a wrong number text, or you're going to be solicited through social media or a dating app. The scammer will form a friendship or a romantic relationship over text and may even offer to call you or FaceTime you. They will then transfer the conversation onto Telegram or WhatsApp. And once they've gained your trust, they will try to introduce you to an investment opportunity, which requires investments in crypto. Typically, they are touted to lead to high returns, very high returns. Once you have invested, you will see those high returns on the associated account of the platform that was advertised to you. The scammers may even allow you to withdraw small amounts of crypto in the beginning of the scam, but all of that is just to entice you to send even more to entice you to send even more money into the scam. If you attempt to withdraw a larger amount of funds, the platform will block you and demand you that you have to pay fraudulent fees and taxes, or tell you that your account was frozen and to unfreeze it, another payment in crypto is required. Even if you make these payments, you will never get your investments back, let alone the promised returns. The best way to avoid this type of scam is to be very wary of any cryptocurrency investment opportunity. Do not respond to wrong number texts, even if they sound very convincing. Be wary of online relationships that progress quickly and involve investments in cryptocurrency. Do not listen to investment advice from online strangers, even if you believe they are your friend. These types of scammers prefer to communicate, as I mentioned, over WhatsApp and Telegram. Those are encrypted messaging platforms that hide the identity of the person on the other side. So if you have not met someone in person, do not communicate with them over WhatsApp or Telegram. If anyone on a dating app or on the social media suggests that you transfer your conversation onto WhatsApp or Telegram, this is most likely a scam. Next slide, please. We have also recently seen an uptick of what's called remote job scams that also involve cryptocurrency. In those scams, you will receive a text from someone claiming to be a recruiter or manager, offering you a remote part-time job opportunity. If you respond to those texts, again, they will most likely transfer that conversation to WhatsApp or Telegram. They will then introduce you to a fake website or an app on which you will complete simple tasks such as reviewing products, watching video clips, or clicking a button over and over again. After completing those tasks, they will pay you a small salary in cryptocurrency, and they may even let you withdraw some of those earnings in the beginning of the scam. However, as you continue, you will encounter that some tasks require prepayment in cryptocurrency or a crypto payment of fees and taxes to continue working in the position. The fees will continue to increase, and the scammers will refuse to release the funds that you have sent to the platform. Ultimately, the entire position is obviously a sham and is just meant to get you to send the scammers money. If you receive a text out of the blue that offers you a job opportunity, do not respond. If you find yourself in a position where an employer requires you to send them cryptocurrency or promises payment in cryptocurrency alone, it is likely a scam. Once again, if you have not met someone in person, do not communicate with them over Telegram or WhatsApp. Next slide, please. So if you find yourself in a situation that sounds similar to any of the crypto scams that I have just described, please refrain from sending any more money to those operations. There are actions that you can take after being targeted by these types of scams. We recommend filing a complaint with the Attorney General's office, which you can do by filing a request for assistance, which is available through the QR code on this slide. You can scan it with your phone if you'd like. And we also recommend filing a a report with the FBI. It's called the IC3 report. They may also be of assistance. If you have any other questions, you can always contact the Insurance and Financial Services Division of the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office at the phone number listed on the slide. Oumou?
Lilia, I think my thing went frozen for a while. Do you see the screen? Yeah?
I do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all so much. All right. It wouldn't be a webinar without some tech issue. Thank you all so much again for being here. Thank you, Lilia. Now I'm passing it on to our partner, Liz, on the call.
Thank you so much, Valerie, Lilia, Oumou, for sharing such important information with us today. So my name's Liz, and I'm with the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, and I will be facilitating our Q&A discussion today. And if I could ask the AG team to turn their cameras on, that would be great. And one small note before we begin. So while we welcome your questions, please note that we will be addressing general topics rather than highly specific or personal situations. And if you do have a specific situation that you'd like to talk through or report, as they mentioned, the Attorney General's office has a statewide toll-free elder hotline to help older adults and their caregivers with a range of concerns. And that hotline is open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and is staffed by trained older adult volunteers. So I'm going to put those resources in the chat now. And so taking a look at some of the questions that we've received. So the first question I have is, if you suspect an older adult is being scammed, but they're in denial, what would you say are some of the most effective ways to start that conversation?
Lilia, do you want to take that question? I think you do a lot of work around it.
Sure, I have some recommendations. So I think, you can try to introduce some reputable resources to them. You can point them to the Massachusetts Attorney General's office webpage. If it's a crypto scam, you can direct them to our crypto scams webpage, which is mass.gov/AGO/crypto. And hopefully, once they read it, they recognize that what's happening to them is similar to what's described on the webpage. Again, once you open the door to that conversation, I anticipate there's going to be a lot of shame associated with it. So remind them that they're not alone, that it happens to many, many people. And then again, you can always, if you suspect that someone is a victim of one of these types of fraud, you can report it to us and we can try to have a conversation with them as well.
And another thing is, this is happening to people of all ages, and definitely letting them know this isn't just specific to older adults. College students, high school students, like people of all ages are experiencing these sorts of scams. I know yesterday I got 2 calls that I suspect were scam just in one day. And another question we received, someone was wondering, how do scammers typically get people's home and mobile numbers? And are there any realistic ways that people can reduce their exposure to receiving all of these scam calls?
So unfortunately, no. So they have access to these phone numbers on the black market. And then B, there are various databases where people's phone numbers pop up, and the scammers at their compounds have people who literally their job is to just look up phone numbers through these databases. So even if you put your name on the do not call list, unfortunately, it will probably not protect you. So I think the best recommendation that I have is if you are receiving a phone call or a message from a non-familiar phone number, do not pick it up.
Yep.
Let them leave a voicemail. And if it's a text message and it says, I'm calling, this is a message from Coinbase, then call Coinbase directly at their published phone number. If they're saying this is a message from IRS, call the IRS's direct phone number, but do not respond to those text messages or those phone calls. Again, with the AI nowadays, even if you pick up and say hello, your hello could be then recycled and used in other scams.
Yes, that I've heard of that as well, and it's terrifying. And so unless anyone else has any last minute questions to put in chat, those are all the questions we received. And unless your team has any other closing remarks that you'd like to share, we can wrap up. So I once again want to thank you all for being here today, and to the Massachusetts Attorney General Office team for joining us. And as you exit the Zoom today, if you could take a moment to complete the post-webinar survey, your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us to improve future sessions. So with that, I wish you all a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Bye.
so much, Liz.
Thank you.
Bye.